Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the Grey. Today's video, we're going to run through some things I'd like to see in Age of Sigmar 3rd edition for the Cities of Sigmar. This video is just going to be a bunch of fun wish listing and just sort of my hopes and dreams for the faction in the new edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and indeed maybe in the future past that as well. As you all know, Cities of Sigmar is my favourite faction in the game. It contains my beloved Scourge Privateers along with other popular favourites of mine like the Wanderers, and also lets me include other favourite armies in it like Stormcast Eternals and Sylvaneth. So in this video, I hope that we can go through, have a look at some of the things I'd like to see, and I'd love to hear from all of you on what you would like to see for my favourite faction in the game, and indeed maybe your favourite faction in the game as well. So let's get cracking into this. This is 10 things I'd like to see in Age of Sigmar 3rd edition for the Cities of Sigmar. Number one for the things I'd like to see with Cities of Sigmar in the new edition are more cities in the Unexplored realms. Now, I know Cities of Sigmar have a ton of sub-factions. In fact, we have 11 in total, if we're counting both Anvilgard and Kuron as separate things, though maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I think this is actually a really good army to have lots of sub-factions with. The reason being, every time they get a new sub-faction, we learn a little bit more about the Mortal Realms. It explores the Mortal Realms in a different way, and there already are some sub-factions just ripe for the taking there to make some of these cities work. I don't think any of these is more easy to sort of port over to a new Cities of Sigmar book than the Lethecian Defenders army list we saw in the Forbidden Power Age of Sigmar supplement in Age of Sigmar 2.0. Lethecian Defenders were an army based out of the defenders of the city of Lethis in the Realm of Death. Straight away, we don't have an army that has anything from the Realm of Death, and also Lethecian Defenders added Idnef Deepkin to their ranks, which adds in another sort of coalition unit we haven't seen in another Cities of Sigmar army since, which just makes them interesting even more, just giving us some more options with this amazing book that is Cities of Sigmar. So I'd love to see something like Lethis come back for the Realm of Death, perhaps show us some of the other realms where we've not got armies from, which are very few at the moment. I mean, we don't have metal, but maybe we could quite easily see some rules for the Vindicarum in there, and some other ones as well for some of the other unexplored realms, and maybe even a pageantry from Azyr as well would be really cool to see how that looks on the tabletop. I think Cities just allow us to explore the realms so well, and giving them more sub-factions just allows us to see the realms in a different light all over again. Number two, build your own city rules. Now, this is maybe a little bit too much wish listing here, especially when I've already sort of started talking about getting extra cities in the realms we haven't had explored that maybe sort of covers the boats that this particular one does. However, maybe not in match play, because that may sort of lead to some sort of issues with it in match play, but maybe in the more narrative play sections of the book, and maybe even something to do with Path to Glory, I think we could see a build your own cities rule set, which would be really interesting and fun to allow people to get creative and interesting. Warhammer Community did an article a while ago on how to build your own city lore-wise, adding all the inhabitants to it and the different sort of special constructs within the city, and that was really cool. I'd like to see something like that, but with rules added to it that would really make the Cities of Sigmar book really interesting to do fun, interesting cities in narrative play for your Path to Glory campaigns. I think it would add a ton to those particular campaigns, or even potentially as you gain rules or gain ground in Path to Glory, you could have more things found for your city, and you can sort of grow your city a long time. So maybe during your campaign, you're trying to strive out to capture a wizard's tower, so you get bonuses for your wizards in this particular city. You've chosen which realm you're going to be from, so you're going to get bonuses based on that realm, etc. I think this could be really fun for Path to Glory. Number three, racial bonuses. Now, this doesn't have to be, I guess, in the most obvious term of it. Obviously, the upfront sort of term as I'm talking about this is, giving something like all Darkling Coven's units get ignore battle shock whilst they're within 18 inch of a sorceress, or all Wanderer's units get to see through woods as if they were open ground, etc. These are racial bonuses you could give off to units as a whole, and all these sub-faction-ish things as a whole to start off with. However, this could be something more sort of nuanced. Instead of maybe doing something like that, you could potentially look to change how their musicians, champions, and banner bearers work. rather than having this sort of universal thing around cities, maybe each different thing has this own sort of rules that work off those particular command models. So maybe you get +1 to hit with all your Wood Elf ones, or your Wanderers I should say, and you get +1 attack with all your Free Guild units. You get +1, I don't know, something else, +1 movement when you're moving through terrain, or you don't get hindered by terrain. You count all terrain as you know, level, and don't count vertical movement with particular ranges of models. I think these are all different sort of effects we could bring in all different ways. We could bring sort of some racial difference between all the different parts of Cities of Sigmar to make it really interesting and sort of bring together all these different parts, though they still act as their own different types of units. Number 4, an Order of Azyr expansion. This is something I definitely think is perhaps in the work already for Cities of Sigmar. We've obviously seen the Vendenst come into Cities of Sigmar, and Jensen Darrick as well from Warhammer Quest. All Order of Azyr models, not to mention they're quite prevalent in the lore. We've got a couple of books and novels out with different Order of Azyr characters, whether that be you know, Callus and Toll, probably perhaps the most famous duo, or you look at the Witch Takers as well. Though that book ends a little bit differently, but we've got these witch hunters around, and it's cool. I really like the idea of the Order of Azyr, this sort of holy, sort of purist army part or section of the Cities of Sigmar. It gives you know, this priestly aspect. Maybe we see witch hunters come back, we see warrior priests come back, or the Excelsior warrior priests come back in a different way. All these different things, I think, can be part of the Order of Azyr, and I think really give us some interesting options for the Cities of Sigmar to just sort of expand their range and get some new models and some new life, and really show us how the Cities of Sigmar work in the mortal realms of Age of Sigmar. Number 5, make similar units different. Now, I think a key example of this comes to mind is Executioners and Greatswords. They're both 2 attacks, two-handed weapon models. You know, Rend 1, Damage 1, they both deal some mortal wounds. And so this is a very similar unit. Now, I think what I'd like to see is these sorts of units within the Cities of Sigmar given specific roles. Now I look at those 2 units and then I look at, say, Wildwood Rangers next to them, and Wildwood Rangers become interesting because they have a special rule that targets monsters. Now I know, throw competitive sense out of the way, people think Wildwood Rangers are not a competitive option and Executioners aren't and Greatswords are. However, if we give 3 distinct roles, they can play a much more interesting game. Rather than just having Greatswords this out and out better because they do everything good, rather make your Wildwood Rangers do 2 damage against monsters, make your Executioners better against models with no armor save, make your Greatswords potentially a much more defensive 2 wound, 2 attack, Rend 1, Damage 1 unit where they get benefits for sort of standing as a bodyguard or something. Maybe they're a type of unit that gets a 3+ roll on the Honoured Retinue roll rather than a 4+, or something like that. I think all of these could be really interesting ways to help differentiate these units, and I think it's important we do differentiate these units and change up how they all sort of work. So any units that are sort of similar, split them up, give them different rules, and make them really unique in their own particular way. Number 6, a deeper dive into the narrative of the cities. Now, in the original Cities of Sigmar book, we got a cool sort of little glimpse, the first sort of look at the narrative of the Cities of Sigmar, showing us exactly what these cities are, what they do, but we never really looked anything past, I guess, the first sort of surface glance of any of the cities in that book. We've then got the same sort of thing for Misthaven, Settlers Gain, and all the cities that have come out during Broken Realms, and I think with the new cities book, it's really important we start to dive deeper and look more into how these cities work, function, the characters within them, and all of that, just to really bring them all to life in their fullest, most possible way, to make them more interesting and really just help us further engage and spread the knowledge of the realms on how they all work and how it is life within the different realms all sort of works. I think the cities, as I said before, is a great way just to show us how all this stuff can come together, work, and it really is an army that allows us to sort of look through our own eyes into the world, and just giving us more narrative on an army like this is really important. Number 7, named characters. This is something important for the cities once again. With all the different cities, I'd like to see a named character potentially from each of the different cities, and I think we've got ways where we can do this without actually having to release other models. The box set I've got pictured here is the Drusa Kraith box set that came out with Broken Realms and Wrathi, and what's interesting is the Dark Elf Sorceress on Black Dragon, and that had a particular loadout they showed in all the pictures, and it was always the same. So with this, I think we could make a particular loadout of this model, Drusa Kraith, rather than having all the options as just generic sorcerers. Make one of the particular loadouts of weapons Drusa, and all the others can have their various options. We did this with the Legions of Nagash book when we got Prince Vordry first introduced. He's just a particular look on the Vampire Lord on a Zombie Dragon model, so he'd be a really interesting way to sort of bring over what we did there to do it with Drusa Kraith. Now, we've also got the ability to do this with other characters as well, and just sort of add these models into the game, and also, you know, maybe even just bringing in some minor 5-wound characters to sort of lead different particular cities, just giving us these leaders for all these cities, and once again, just further expanding this lore for the cities that helps us see the Mortal Realms in such a great way. Number 8, Anvilgard and Kuron merger. Now, it was obvious to those who've read the Broken Realms lore that Anvilgard is now called Kuron. They are not two different cities, they are the same city in two different timelines, in two different parts of the timeline of the Mortal Realms. So I think with the new cities book, if we ever see it in this edition, it would need to bring about the end of Anvilgard. As much as that pains me, because everyone knows how much I love Anvilgard, I think both Anvilgard and Kuron do have glaring holes in their allegiance abilities. I think if you all of a sudden give Kuron the ability to have the Drakeblood curses and its sort of Blackfang Crime Lord rules as well, I think Kuron fleshes out and becomes a much better City of Sigmar and doesn't have to rely on potentially bringing in some of the good dock units to really work. So I'd like to see these two merge, come together, and become better than the two of them are alone, to become something more interesting with the two of them combined. Number 9, I'd like to see a proper replacement rule for the rule with the Empowered Endless Spells. Now, the rule we've got instead is +1 to cast Endless Spells. It's not that interesting a rule. I think it's really boring and sort of just a definite sort of placeholder rule. It doesn't feel like it's had any real thought to it. I think we need something to properly replace this rule and give us sort of that ability to have these wild and powerful endless spells on the table. Perhaps something interesting is the ability for cities wizards to maybe control more than one, or attempt to control more than one endless spell. For instance, if you have more endless spells out than you have wizards, you can attempt to maybe try and control more than one with your wizard, but at the potential of maybe taking some mortal wounds as consequence. Perhaps you could also choose to empower those endless spells that you already have out. So you're having to cast them, but then in later turns, the wizard can choose to empower and push those spells to potentially do more damage. So it'd be an interesting sort of thing of like, cool, if it does D3 mortal wounds, then damage it. If it does this, then double that, etc. It could be something interesting to sort of add to the city's arsenal and replace this rule that was taken away from them. Number 10, an Ironweld Arsenal expansion. Now we've heard all the stories about Cogforts, and we've seen all the stuff from particular members of the community building up stuff for Cogforts. I think the Ironweld Arsenal after the Order of Azyr is the most interesting thing we have in Cities of Sigmar to expand and look into. I'd love to see more weird and wacky and mechanical creations from the Ironweld Arsenal come into play. I'd love to see things like maybe even the mechanical steed from the Empire and Warhammer Fantasy make a return. That'd be a really cool thing to add to the army. I'd like to see more weird war machines, maybe some steam tank variants or gyrocopter and gyro bomber variants would be interesting as well. Not to mention maybe some frontline troops, so maybe some more heavily armoured handgunners, similar to sort of the Norn Ironsides we had in Warhammer Fantasy times from Forge World, would be another interesting thing to see as well. The Ironweld Arsenal, I think, has this really cool sort of look that you can expand upon to make the sort of techie cities look. Would be really interesting to see and see how that looks on the tabletop and in the lore. So that's my list of 10 things I'd like to see for Cities of Sigmar in the new edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar. I'd love to hear from all of you on your thoughts, your ideas, and what you would like to see and what you wouldn't like to see as well in the comments below. Let us know, love to hear from you all, and we'll see you all again real soon. Well, thank you all for watching the video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Also, while you're at it, why not come chat more with us on Discord? We've got a link in the description of the video below to our Discord so we can come chat with me and other members of our fine little community here at Sinful Gaming. Lastly, we'd like to give a shout out to everyone who helps support the channel in various different ways. First of all, to our Patreon members, Christian Weir, James Soren, Chaos Spawn, AJC, Kenny Lowe, Outer and Shot First, James Crowder, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, Tim Newman, The Rising Ape, Cure Dynamic, Agu, Anthony B, MJ, and Dyna226. Thank you to, as well, our YouTube members, Green Roots Gaming, Fire Titan, Steve T, The Real Zeot, Chris Wallace, Turriot12, Vinny, and Loch Lorick. And a special thanks to our artist who does all the channel art for us, Lady Witchfox Art, thank you very much. And to our Discord moderator, Xmorphic, you do a fantastic job on Discord for us as well. Thank you all, everyone, for watching. If you'd like to help support on Patreon or YouTube member or help support the channel in another way, you can do so by following one of the links in the description of the video to Patreon or YouTube members, or go buy some Sinful Gaming merch from our Teespring store, also linked in the video's description. That's it for today, everyone. Thank you again. Stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.